Pay close attention. What you're about to see is Bible prophecy being fulfilled.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you news as it relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Yisrael Hawkins. Well, superbugs from antibiotics, where? In your foods, no other place. STDs on the rise, and of course, nuclear war at the ready among the nations are just a few of the articles we have for you today. But first, we're going to start with antibiotics are turning livestock into superbug factories. In the United States, nearly 80% of antibiotics are taken not by humans, but cows, pigs, and chickens. Farmers feed these drugs to their livestock to prevent disease and to help them grow faster. Over 130 tons of antibiotics are distributed to livestock every year globally, leading to higher rates of antibiotic-resistant superbugs. This has researchers worried that antibiotic genes may transfer from an animal's gut to human.
Research has also shown that people living close to pig farms are 30% more likely to be infected with MRSA. Now, experts recommend capping antibiotic use. Currently, there are no limits, as well as a 50% tax on antibiotics and limiting meat consumption by humans.
Well, the recent gunman who killed 58 and injured nearly 500 in Las Vegas, Nevada, wasn't on a suicide mission, but had his eyes on other targets. Investigators are still trying to assess why 64-year-old Stephen Paddock embarked on a killing spree in Las Vegas. With his planning so elaborate, authorities think he may have had an accomplice. Clark County Sheriff Joseph Lombardo said in a press conference that Paddock spent years acquiring weapons and ammo and living a secret life, much of what will never be understood.
New footage and police investigations reveal a more complete timeline. At 10:05 p.m., Paddock fired from the window at the Mandalay Bay Hotel and continued for 10 minutes until 10:15 p.m. Now, at 10:18, he fired more than 200 rounds through the door of his room, wounding hotel security. After that, the shooting stopped. Now, shots fired from the suspect's 32nd floor room not only hit people, but aviation tanks. Now, investigators are trying to determine if those were stray or intentional.
Well, Randy Sutton, a retired police officer in Las Vegas, Nevada there, and a consultant for CBS News, said this man had training because of his tremendous tactics. He said he wonders who helped him to train and to use those weapons as he did.
In Catalan, Spain, a battle is taking place at the ballot boxes. Over 300 people have been injured in clashes with the police. Now, preceding the Catalan referendum, Catalans lined up by the thousands to vote, while the Spanish National Police forced their way from one voting center to another, violently removing peaceful voters downstairs, hitting them with batons, and removing ballot boxes.
National police also clashed with local police over the use of force. The complaint coming from the local police, of course. Catalan's Education Minister Clara Obiols said that what the national police were doing was a crime. Violating human rights, injuring people, that is a crime. The video footage shows National Police battering protesters with batons and firing rubber bullets at them. Not even the elderly were spared violence from police forces, as one particular woman, and there were many others, but it was caught on video, was pushed and hit on the head, of course, wounding that woman in the process.
Wow. Well, protesters are expecting police to use force, but the numbers of protesters are rising, not diminishing, as even whole families, including children, have showed up to cast their vote.
Yeah, what a horrible environment to be in. Well, the polls are also in for a saddening reality here in the United States as well. Larry McGee is reporting on that story for us as well as several others. Larry, what do you have?
Frightening news for the microbiomes of both the earth and men alike. STDs have reached their peak and are now reported to be at an all-time high. According to an annual report recently released by the CDC, there were 1.6 million new cases of chlamydia, 470,000 new cases of gonorrhea, and 28,000 people newly afflicted with syphilis. The report took particular notice of the rise among certain groups. Gonorrhea detected in men increased by 22%, while close to half of the new chlamydia cases were in women, and infection with syphilis among newborns was up 28%. And what many are hoping is a shift away from the ineffective and dangerous philosophy of safe sex through condoms. The CDC is reported to be suggesting that state and local health officials refocus on prevention as well as treatment of sexually transmitted disease. Information is also getting out that being populated with sexually transmitted pathogens is not without its consequences. The infections are reported to cause serious health problems, including infertility, neurological issues, and increased risk for HIV. Analysts blame the latest rise on funding cutbacks for education and healthcare programs, while others are pointing a finger at the growing popularity of dating apps. Growing cooperation between Russia and Saudi Arabia has many people taken notice following a recent trip to Moscow by Arabia's King Salman. The Saudi head is the first monarch from the nation to visit Russia. Talks between the two leaders is said to have centered around economic issues and the crisis in the Euphrates region. According to the Kremlin, both Putin and Salman have underlined the need for a peaceful solution to the conflicts in the Middle East and have joined hands to create a joint energy fund reported to be worth $1 billion. Concerning things of lesser value, when cheap insults and name-calling takes place among world leaders, one can't help but take a moment to question where the world is headed. For the first time in history, a leader from the DPRK addressed an international audience to inform everyone listening that he had taken President Trump's recent bout of name-calling personally. The North Korean leader countered the president's remarks with the threat of retaliation in the form of a nuclear test explosion over the Pacific. Mr. Jung-Un threatened to make President Trump pay dearly for his recent speech in front of the UN, where he referred to the North Korean head as Rocket Man and stated that he was on a suicide mission. In response, Jung-Un called President Trump a dotard, as well as a rogue and a gangster who's playing with fire. The back and forth of negative communication is only serving to increase tensions and is isolating some of the DPRK's most important allies, such as China, who have ordered their banks to cease business with the nation. Despite it all, however, North Korea is reported to have carried out its sixth and largest nuclear test this month, to which U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, has stated that America will not run scared. If the U.S. or any of its allies are attacked by North Korea for any reason, she says, the U.S. will respond. Period. For YPN News, I'm Larry McGee. Katan Jeff, back to you.
Katan, certainly the name calling from some of our world leaders are not going to help the situation. Right. Well, Kim Jung-Un isn't the only person criticizing the president's leadership abilities these days. NBC News reported his own Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, is at odds with the president. Now, while the State Department didn't deny it, they would not agree with the rumor either. However, about a dozen sources were telling news media there is real tension between the two.
One source reported that the Secretary of State had called the president a moron, using foul language in front of moron. This came after the president was talking about a strategy in Afghanistan and comparing it to how the 21 Club, that's one of club's favorite clubs that the president frequents, was renovated. That was in New York.
Well, there is the idea that a lot of bad blood exists within the White House. Now, during this administration, while Rex Tillerson is very close to General Mattis, speaking with him daily, the Secretary of State is kind of a loner. Tillerson travels with a very small staff, and it is known his relationship with Jared Kushner in the past has been tense as well. Now, to put it simply, he hasn't made a lot of friends.
Well, just one day after North Korea threatened to shoot down American warplanes, President Trump says the U.S. armed forces are totally ready to respond. Now, the president feels Kim Jung-Un is acting badly and has vowed to fix the mess in North Korea.
At a press conference in the Rose Garden, President Trump talked about new economic sanctions against the country, as well as the need for more diplomatic pressure. However, military action sounds more and more like a viable option to the leader of the United States.
Well, at a press conference for his reaction to the news that the North Korean government has threatened to take aim or shoot down American planes flying in international airspace, Trump didn't hold back, saying it would be, quote, devastating for North Korea. That's called the military option. If we have to take it, we will.
Well, Yusra Hawkins has been warning the world that it is headed for nuclear war given its current course. Let's watch a brief video to lead into our next news segment.
Every child that enters kindergarten is a potential killer. And by the time he gets through kindergarten and up to where he's 10 to 12 years of age.
You predicted the end of the world via a nuclear baby that was to occur in September of 2006, September 12, as I recall. Well, that has passed. Then it moved up to 2007. It is currently 2008. What happened to the nuclear baby?
Well, Jeff, it's interesting that Yusra Hawkins did prophesy of nuclear war starting back in 2006. But as he said, war doesn't start with the dropping of the bomb. It comes with a lot of planning.
That's right.
And, of course, missile testing as well. And it's very interesting to look back at the history of North Korean nuclear program because that, in fact, lines right up with the birth of the nuclear baby.
In 2006, Korean state TV came out saying, "We carried out a safe and successful nuclear test." Now, the news made North Korea the world's 9th nuclear power. Just last month, on 9/11, Director General of the IAEA, Yokiya Amano, reminded us of this in his opening statement to the Board of Governors. Now, speaking about the most current test, Amano said this new test, the 6th and largest since, and he mentioned 2006, is in complete disregard of the repeated demands of the international community, actually recognizing the fact that North Korea has been testing since 2006.
Interesting. Well, then in 2009, North Korea claimed yet a more powerful underground nuclear test. It created an earthquake which registered 4.7 of 5 on the Richter scale. It was the equivalent of 2 kilotons of explosive or a small nuclear weapon.
Jumping ahead to 2012, Pyongyang launched a long-range rocket. Then in 2013, North Korea conducted its 3rd underground nuclear test. In 2015, a picture came out showing Kim Jong-un with what state-run media called a miniaturized nuclear warhead.
Making further claims of advancing their program, the North Korean leader also announced his country developed a hydrogen bomb, though U.S. and other outside experts were skeptical at the time. And yet again in 2016, North Korea claimed it conducted a, quote, higher-level nuclear warhead test.
In March 2017, Kim Jong-un's regime began stepping up its missile testing. They fired 5 ballistic missiles in 2 launches, which all fell into the Sea of Japan. Then in April, North Korea fired a ballistic missile into the waters off its east coast. The missile traveled 117 miles and was said to be practice for targeting U.S. bases in Japan. And of course, that's what everybody's worried about now, is will they go after those bases?
Interesting. Well, during this past summer, things got even more tense when in July, North Korea fired its first intercontinental ballistic missile. The ICBM would have a range of at least 3,500 miles, capable of reaching Alaska.
A second ICBM was tested shortly after to show U.S. cities are now within its target range, the regime said. Currently, officials believe that North Korea has constructed a nuclear warhead small enough to fit on a missile. And North Korea has said it is seriously reviewing a plan to strike the U.S. Pacific territory of Guam with missiles.
But with all the planning and the war of words back and forth, Jeff, why haven't we had nuclear war yet? Well, Yisrael Hawkins predicted that this would take place in 2006, and many people are saying, well, where's the war? Where's the nuclear war? Well, let's look back once again to that interview he had with Nancy Grace for the answers.
The nuclear baby was prophesied to take place at that time, and if you got the articles, now we published that book before the date was to take place. But after we published the book, then the news articles started coming in showing the nuclear pains of a baby or a nuclear war that is going to take place. Nancy, this is going to take place, and it's taking place right now.
My question is, you convinced your followers...
They are getting ready for nuclear war.
Yes, I'm sure they are. But you convinced your followers that there would be a nuclear war in 2006 and 2007. It hasn't happened. What became of the prophecy? How were you so misled by Yahweh?
I wasn't misled, and I didn't mislead the people either. I wasn't misled, and I didn't mislead the people either.
If you're not going to answer...
My prophecies are coming to pass. Yes, they're coming to pass now.
How long is the gestation period on this nuclear baby? I mean, it's been a long time, since 2000, 2006, 2007.
And, of course, Yahweh held back the nuclear war, of course. Yahweh held back the nuclear war, and he's holding it back. But it won't be held back for long. But it won't be held back for long. But it won't be held back for long.
So it's being held back, but knowing the age of North Korea's nuclear program, we can see it won't be held back much longer, Katan. Worrying of a pending nuclear war is evident as several states in America are now actively working out the cost of a nuclear war for their state, as well as emergency planning.
California has been counting the cost and recently released an official report predicting the potential effects of a nuclear strike on their state. In the report, there is estimated to be a huge loss of life, many more exposed to poisonous radiation, and of course, the destruction of infrastructure. The damages totaling up to $1 trillion for the state of California alone.
Hawaii also fears the threat of a nuclear strike, and officials there have been planning what they could do if there was an attack. Details from a secret meeting were leaked revealing several things. First, residents will be advised to prepare for a possible nuclear strike as they would for a tsunami or a hurricane. Now, the state also hopes to give a 12-minute warning for people to find shelter, which really is not a lot of time. Finally, survivors would be advised to stay indoors for up to 72 hours to avoid exposure to radiation.
Well, Renee Carayol, an author and political analyst, recently explained to RT why the U.S. and North Korea confrontation is so disturbing. He said, for years and years and years, every one of Donald Trump's predecessors has faced the unpredictable, bellicose, and sometimes weird North Korea. How's he been dealt with? Well, predictably, diplomatic actions, sanctions if need be, but no one has ever reacted like this.
Carayol went on to say, we are in the most worrying time since the Second World War. Why? I'm not sure it's North Korea. I think for the first time ever, it's America that's unpredictable. And will there be any sort of conflagration and any sort of military engagement, which that word conflagration means an extensive burning of the land. But he went on to say, we are still hoping no, but it's getting less and less stable.
Scary.
Well, as you can see, there are certainly these analysts that are realizing we are very close to this point of nuclear war. So if you'd like to learn more about what you can do to avoid the nuclear war, how to survive it, contact the House of Yahweh today. And when you do, don't forget to ask for your free copy of the Prophetic Word magazine and monthly newsletter. Here's how.
To contact the House of Yahweh, you can write the House of Yahweh at The House of Yahweh, P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas 79604. Or you can call them at 1-800-613-9494. or visit them on any of their websites at www.yahweh.com, www.yisroelhawkins.com, or www.yahwehsbranch.com. You can also visit our website by going to www.ypnnews.com. And for email, you can email the House of Yahweh at info@yahweh.com. And for all calls outside the United States, please dial the number on your screen. And for those of you who enjoy studying the Holy Scriptures, the most accurate and not to mention free study resource on the internet is available for your use, and you can find those two programs, the Yisrael Says and the Ask Yisrael program, by going to www.yisraelsays.com and www.askyisrael.com.
Well, don't go anywhere. Up next, another exciting message from Yisroel Hawkins. From all of us here at YPN News, I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
And I'm Katan Alexander.
Thanks for watching.